Hey everybody, Matt from Khyber Racks here. In this video, I'm going to walk you through building your Khyber Pivot Rack at home step by step so you can get loaded up and out riding faster. Before you start, gather all the tools you need. Just so you know, all the bolts and nuts on the rack are metric, so all your tools have to be metric. You're going to need a 17 mil, a 19 mil, and a 24 mil socket. You're going to need an 8 mil and 10 mil Allen key or hex key, and you're going to need a torque wrench. Please note you can use power tools during the assembly, but it's extremely important to do the final check with a torque wrench at the end. Another quick mention before we start, every piece of hardware in your Khyber racks is stainless steel. It's very important to use the provided Loctite on all the bolts during assembly. If you skip the Loctite and over tighten, stainless steel can seize or bond together through a process called galling, which can make bolts extremely difficult to remove. Please take an extra minute here, it will save you a headache later. Another thing to mention is the mast is quite heavy. You can install it yourself, but having a second person to help out will make your life a lot easier. The next thing you want to do is locate the parts box. So there's going to be a single box like this. It's super heavy. All the stuff's inside of it. On the inside, you're going to have your hitch spigot. You're going to have your hitch parts. You're going to have a small box full of parts, and you're going to have your pivot block. So go ahead and open that up and pull all that stuff out. The first step is you're going to locate your hitch spigot in the hitch related parts box. On the inside of this box, you have your U-lock, and you have your hitch bolt and cube and spring. For this next step, you're going to take your hitch bolt and you're going to remove the cube, spring, washers, and nuts from it. You'll have your bottle of Loctite. You're going to take the Loctite and you're going to put some on the inside of the cube. Once you have Loctite on the inside of the cube, you're going to take your spring. You're going to put the spring in the recess of the cube, compress, and you're going to slide it into the spigot. You want to make sure the spigot notch is facing down. Next, you take your hitch spigot with the cube installed, with the notch facing downwards, slide it into your hitch, and line up the two holes. Next, take your hitch bolt, make sure there's one washer on it. This hitch bolt's going to go on the opposite side of the spring you just installed. You can start the threads by hand. There's already Loctite inside there on the cube. Once the threads are started by hand, you can take your impact with a 24 mil, snug that up. Once that bolt's through, you want to take the washer on the other side, put that on, get a little dose of Loctite on that, and thread the locking nut on. Once that's thread on, you want to torque this up to 80 newton meters, and you want to torque the other side up to 80 newton meters as well. Okay, next step is you take your U-lock, take some Loctite, put it on the threads of the U-lock, put it on the hitch spigot, nice and snug against the hitch. Take the plate, 45 angle goes up, touching the hitch spigot, washer, and a nut. Tie those bolts up by hand. Once they're started by hand, go with your impact in the 19 mil. Make sure you tighten it, not loosen it. I'll keep both sides kind of even and just snug that up until it's nice and tight. You can torque that after to about 60 newton meters. Okay, the next step is you're going to locate your pivot block, and you're going to take these two bottom bolts out. Make sure not to lose the spacers, they're very important. I'm going to remove these two bolts. Keep an eye out for the spacer, you're going to need it for the install as well. Okay, you can bring your pivot box over to the hitch, and there's two mounting positions. There's a far position, which is good for trucks for extra tailgate clearance, or a closer position, which is better for cars and SUVs. Okay, you can see we added a small piece of tape here to hold the spacer in place. It'll make your life a lot easier when you put the pivot box on top. Okay, once the pivot box is in place, you want to take your washers. You can see the one side is rounded and the one side is flat. You want to make sure the rounded side is touching the rack. Okay, the next step is we're going to prep for the mast install. So what you're going to do is going to take out this top bolt here, Gonna lower this so it's out of the way. And you're gonna do the same with the back one here. Fold that out of the way so you have access to the pivot block on the inside. Next, you want to remove these 4 bolts. Okay, once you have your mast, you want to find your mast bushings. These mast bushings have 2 different positions. If you have your rack in low mode, they go in the top 2 holes. If you have your rack in high mode, they go in the bottom 2 holes. For this video, we're going to do the low mode. What you can do is put that in place, take another small piece of tape, just put that on top, just to hold in place the install. It'll make your life a lot easier. And then you want to flip the rack over. You want to do the same with the other side. Just make sure these 2 bushings are in the same position. Okay, once your bushings are on the mast, you're going to install these 4 bolts you took out of the pivot block. If you have your rack in low mode, you're going to use the top 4, and if you have your rack in high mode, you're going to use the bottom 4. For this video, we're going to do the low mode. You want to make sure this one with the spacers at the bottom, and you want to make sure it's matching up with the laser etching. Second bolt with a spacer, third bolt with a spacer, and the button head bolt on the top. The next thing you want to do is you want to flip this over and just get some Loctite on these threads before you install. Okay, once those bolts are through, you just start the threads by hand. You can make sure the nut goes all the way into the recess. Thread the bolt in. Just do that with all 4. Okay, once those nuts are threaded in, you can snug these up with impact if you'd like. It's a 10 mil. Just go until they're tight. This top one is an 8 mil, and you're going to want to torque these down to 65 Newton meters. Okay, next you're going to flip these back up. Put the bolt through. Same with this side, flip back up. Put the bolt through. Grab your spacers, make sure the rounded side is towards the rack. Same here. And next thing we're going to do is we're going to go and Loctite all these threads. Same with all these ones, and then torque everything up. Okay, make sure all the nuts are removed. Spacers are all on there. Get a nice healthy dose of Loctite on every single one of the threads. It's an important step, and you have to make sure to put Loctite on these threads. All the hardware is stainless steel, so you forget the Loctite, the stainless steel could bond together. And then just hand thread on all the nuts. Okay, the 7th bolt here for the limiter hole. If you plan on running your rack in vertical mode, which is straight up and down, you can have this in and it'll stop the rack when you push it back up. If you want to run your rack in forward mode, which boosts ground clearance, you have to have this bolt removed. For this video, we'll have it installed. Okay, once you've tightened all your nuts with your socket, you want to go back and make sure they're all torqued to 60 Newton meters. Okay, then take your pivot pin, make sure there's lots of grease on there, insert it, just tap it through, then take your cotter pin and just insert it through the hole in the pin. Okay, next step, locate the 2 top plates. There'll be one with some laser etching and one without. And you also want to locate 4 bolts to go with it. They'll be in the parts box. So you want to take 2 bolts, put the washers on, rounded side facing towards the plate. Okay, take the plate with the laser etching, make sure it's facing out and matches up with the other laser etching. Line up the 2 holes, slide the bolts through. Okay, and then take the back plate with no laser etching, slide it through. Get 2 washers on here, around the side facing in. Loctite up the threads. And then thread the 2 nuts on. Hand tight for now. Okay, the next step is you're going to build your top bar with the baskets. So for this, you're going to locate your 2 basket boxes. There's 2 baskets per box. Your top bar and your front wheel basket bag. You'll need the 8mm, 17mm, and some Loctite. Put them on the bench, face down, with the speed lock facing the wall. Okay, next you're going to take your rectangular spacers and put them on the top. Slap the holes. And do that for all your baskets. So you have those in place, you'll take your other spacers, take 1 plastic one and 1 steel one, and just put them on the side by each basket. Okay, after the spacers, you want to put 2 bolts and 2 nuts with each basket. Okay, next you'll take your top bar, you're going to locate the laser etching there with the instructions, and you're going to face that towards the wall in line with the speed tie. Next you want to take your 2 bolts. You want to start with this one, push it up, line up the second one, push it through. Take your 2 spacers, the plastic one goes down facing the rack, the steel one faces out. Hold it, take a bottle of Loctite, a little bit on the threads, hand thread the nuts on. Repeat that process for the rest of the baskets. Alright, after all your washers are set in place, you can go ahead and tighten up those nuts and bolts. You're going to need the 8mm and 17mm. Tighten them up and then torque them down to 30 Newton meters each. Okay, for the next step, you want to hang on to these 10 by 80 bolts. And you want to have your baskets all ready. You're going to grab this. Slide it down to get rested on the top, hold it with the one arm. Slide it over until the holes line up. Push this one bolt through. Once that bolt is through, you can lift up this other side, slide the second bolt through like that. Okay, once those bolts are through, you're going to want to put the spacers on, rounded side facing forward. You're going to want to put a little bit of Loctite on the threads. And then hand thread the 2 nuts on. And once those are on, you want to tighten down all 4 of these bolts to 30 Newton meters. Okay, next you want to grab your bottom wheel bar. There's a little bottle opener, and you want to make sure that is facing towards the bottom. And you can see on the side here, there's 2 mounting positions. There's a higher one if you have smaller kids bikes. Use the higher one. If you have normal size adult bikes, use the lower one. Just gonna slide that over the mast. Line up the holes. You put these bolts through and make sure they're matching the other bolts so it looks nice. Once those bolts are through, throw the spacers on there. A little bit of Loctite on the threads. And then the 2 nuts to finish it off. Once those nuts are on there, torque those down to 30 Newton meters. Okay, once the bars are on, take your ropes, start at the bottom, thread through. Just do a simple knot right by the top, leave about 1/2 inch to 1 inch thread, just pull that tight. Same thing with the other side. Pull tight. And then when you're storing the ropes, to the bottom, outside, inside, looks the best. Okay, now take your ropes and repeat the process on the top baskets. When you're storing these top ropes, the knot at the bottom, you go outside, outside, in the middle for the best aesthetic. And that's it, your Khyber Racks is fully built. Before you hit the road, give everything a quick once over, make sure all the bolts are tight and it's properly secured to your vehicles. Once that's done, load it up and we'll see you on the trails.